So, all right. Well, let's start just by, bringing ourselves here, kind of settling into this class. And a good way to do that is to kind of sit in meditation posture where you sit up straight, have your chest open, your shoulders relaxed, and you just kind of gaze downwards. And you take a few deep breaths. And then just scan your body for any spots of tension. And use your breath to breathe into those spots. So we're really trying to let go of whatever we were doing 5 minutes ago and whatever we're going to be doing after the class. Really just tune in to our body and mind here right now. And if you try to follow the sensation of the breath in and out of the body for a minute or two, that can help the mind settle down. So just anchor your attention on that sensation of the breath, just the breath. Don't worry about thoughts arising. There's no need to reject any thoughts, but there's also no need to follow any thoughts, engage in any thoughts. Just the breath. Now bring to mind the reason you came to class tonight. What is your interest or your wish? And try to generate a positive intention to use your time well based on that reason. And then try to make it as expansive as possible by combining it with the wish that it not only benefit yourself, but that it will ripple out to benefit others. And so when you're ready, open your eyes and we'll recite the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So does anybody want to share why they're taking this class?
Oh,
Yes.
Sure.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Dave. I'm in a master's program for mental health counseling, and we're on the class is called multicultural counseling or something like that. Very cool. This week's topic was religion and spirituality, and they were talking about different ways that we can expand our knowledge. And I consider myself spiritual but not religious. And I've always wanted to go to like a Buddhist temple or an ashram. So I looked up, I live in Deerfield, so I looked it up, and that's how I found you guys. And I figured no better time than the present, so here I am.
Excellent.
So I've been very interested, and I saw that this class is here, so I signed up for it, and here I am. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us. I think it's so helpful. I've gone to speak to like healthcare providers, hospice providers, you know, different groups who help those who are at the end of their life, you know, with other religious groups, you know, to share the different perspectives so that we can be more helpful to each other when we're, you know, because, you know, it's nice to have someone there to comfort you at the time of death that has some idea about your spiritual path, at least. So thank you for taking that course. That's great. Anybody else want to share while you're here?
I can share. This is Katya, and I know Venerable Tendron, I shared with you why I started actually going to your center. I'm a clinical social worker by profession. I work in the emergency room and intensive care unit in Miami, and I also work in hospice previously. But my only child, my son Victor, 18 months ago, he died by suicide. And that has really put me on a very a new path in my life and trying to understand, trying to look at life differently and understand, not understand, but trying to look at his transition from spiritual perspective and how I can transform my grief into wisdom, so I can also help perhaps other parents going through the same thing I am, as well as other perhaps patients I will encounter in my profession.
Thank you for sharing that, Katya. Anybody else? Let's see.
Yeah, because I know I'm going to die, so I think it could be useful.
Okay. Yes, that's certainly the, you know, the purpose, for, you know, is to kind of give us, you know, from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective, what might help us prepare so we're not so afraid of death. You know, as one, I think his Rinpoche's book, how to what's it called? how to have a happy death or something like that. So it's
Yes,
It's
Patty
how
was-
to enjoy death.
how to enjoy death.
It's on
It's kind of an unusual point of view in general in our culture. So thank you, Patty. And this is, of course, a really meaningful time to be discussing this. You know, for the world right now, a lot of people are facing scary situations with their health. You know, and it's not that we, you know, one of the things in Buddhism we want to try to, our teachers try to really encourage us to do is to recognize that, of course, death is the inevitable conclusion of birth. You know, there's no way around that things that are, that arise due to causes and conditions like birth, you know, those causes and conditions cease to support life, and then, you know, the body no longer can support your mind. So the Buddhist view on death is that it's not an end to anything but this body and this storyline that we have about ourselves. You know, that we grasp after whoever we are, whatever, and we call it, we give it a name, you know, and then, you know, like I or me. And throughout our lives, we strongly identify with this self. And according to the Buddha, most of that identification is meaningless. You know, that according to the Buddha, we don't have some sort of permanent nature that follows us from conception to death. Instead, we, you know, just like our body is changing literally moment by moment, our mind arises moment by moment. The body is physical, the mind is not. The mind relies heavily on the body, the brain, all the things that support the brain, or the, you know, communication system in the body, but it is not the body. It's not the brain. And according to the Buddha, this non-physical mind never ceases. It never began. It's just always existed. And each one of us have a mental continuum that has always existed and will always exist. That we experience the death of our bodies because of the kind of existence we're being born into. And we're born into it. It's called samsara, according to Buddhism, cyclic existence, because we have an incorrect idea about how we exist. And that mistaken conception, that fundamental confusion that we share, is this idea that the self exists in some sort of permanent, concrete way. And from that grasping, all sorts of other mistakes happen, misconceptions arise, and we create the cause for our suffering. We create the cause of uncontrolled birth and death. But it's possible to cease this uncontrolled birth and death. Like an enlightened being does not have to take rebirth in this, you know, inadequate body that fails eventually, sometimes sooner than later, you know. So it's a very different perspective than those of us who grow up seeing this life as it. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're listening to the teachings about death from this perspective, because it's all hinges on this, you know, this teaching on dependent arising, that everything exists is a dependent arising, causes and conditions, you know, are present when all the causes and conditions come together. then something arises. In our case, our body. When the sperm and the egg, come together, that's the beginning of this body. But it's not the beginning of this mind. So according to the Buddha, we can help prepare our mind for death so that we're not frightened by it, so that we understand what's going on, so that we don't cling tightly to this life, causing ourselves unnecessary pain, that we're able to just, lovingly let go of our family and friends and see what's next.
That
So it's
sounds
kind
really,
of, yeah, John,
you make it sound really nice.
that's what we're aiming for. And according to the teachings, it really is about the mind. It's about our habits of mind and our understanding of impermanence. Our bodies are impermanent. And the length of our lives is indefinite. We don't know. People die at all ages. So any of us, so it's in that the time of death can also happen in any moment. So being afraid of that, it's not that we should chase it, but being afraid of it, pretending it's not going to happen, just distorts our attitudes about it. Because of course it is going to happen. And so if we prepare for it, that can remove some of the mental suffering that might arise if we don't prepare for it. Does that make sense? So we've been talking in the previous courses, about the mind and its potential, and about the mind is totally changeable. We maybe, even as a child, have certain habits of mind, but we just were practicing them in previous lives. It doesn't mean we are anger or impatience, or we're miserly, or, we're none of the, we're not a single moment or a single characteristic or even a multitude of characteristics, that we can actually become familiar with our states of mind and then assess whether we want to keep practicing particular habits of mind or we want to let go of those habits of mind. And that can really benefit. Yes, Faye.
We're not a multitude of characteristics. What do you mean by that?
In other words, there's nothing that we can hold on to that says, oh, this is me. We are simply a series of moments of body arising and mind arising. And whatever we choose to do in response to that moment, whether, whatever external things are happening or whatever internal things are happening, we can, with awareness, we can choose what state of mind we want to follow. It's really quite the outrageous premise in some ways. But the idea is, as I've talked about many times, I have the habit of impatience, and so pretty much, almost anything can be a condition for my impatience to arise, But now that I'm really accustomed to paying attention to what's going on in my mind, I can see the pause between the state of impatience arising, which I usually feel in my body, and choose whether or not to feed that impatience, keep the conversation going in my head going, oh, when are they going to speed up this process? Or when are they going to figure out how to do this? Or whatever the ridiculous conversation I'm having. Or I can just interrupt it and just say, well, I'm not following that habit. It just makes me suffer. And slowly, slowly, we just get better at catching that kind of state of mind, that habit of mind earlier and earlier. And so our behavior of body and speech becomes less harmful to others and to ourselves, because feeling impatient is not a pleasant way to feel. Okay. So our states of mind generally arise due to causes and conditions. And one of those causes is what we've been practicing in the past. So if you practice a lot of anger or impatience, you keep doing it. You know? So the process of changing our minds really involves being aware of when they arise, really observing our mind to where it just becomes a habit. You just know what's going on with your mind, unless you're super hooked by something. And one of those hooks can be the news that you've got a terminal illness, or every time the birthday rolls around and you realize, another decade's gone by. That's sort of how it feels. So, it's about, helping us have a more peaceful, calm, practical response to the fact of aging, illness, and death. We may be fortunate and never experience illness. I think some people actually still die of old age, of natural causes. I'm not sure what natural causes means, but But we don't avoid aging and we don't avoid death. That's going to happen. So how we respond to that fact in our mind is really important to whether or not it becomes a terrifying event or just, okay, I've reached that stage. Any questions about that or thoughts about that?
I have a question. So
Yes, Katya.
is all of our reaction to death, I'm asking not just personally, but also working in an environment like, helping other people dealing with death, is our reaction to like losing someone, is it all conditioning? Are we not supposed to experience suffering and sadness and pain? Like, how is one to respond? Because in my human...
Well, we're going to go into this a lot more, because it's one of the key pieces, is what is it that makes the time of death, when we know it's inevitable, we know it's a fact, and even for people who meet it very late in life, even 70, 97-year-olds can be frightened of death, It's, so the teachings talk about how attachment being our exaggerated response to things we like, the way we exaggerate good things, the way we kind of sometimes think, if our partner leaves us, we'll never be happy again because we think we can only be happy with that person. And of course, we were happy before that person came into our lives. So it's possible we'll be happy after they've left our lives. You know, it'll be just different. But it's just, you know, that we are very attached to things staying the same. So we'll talk about that. And then there's just the fear of losing oneself. Because we grasp after this sense of self, that it's not just this body dying, it's Tendron. Tendron doesn't want to let go. So, you know, we want to work on understanding that the Tendron I'm grasping after probably never existed in the first place, except in my head. It's just the story I make up about myself. So this takes a lot of thought, and it takes sort of many, you know, it's not just this course, it's you know, that this is all part of the whole presentation of the path in Buddhism. You know, how do we handle these habits we have of attachment and aversion and grasping at the self? Because these are the causes of our suffering. You know, even in this life, we can see how even if our body is, you know, feels great, if our mind is suffering, we won't notice the body, and vice versa. You know, if our, you know, it's just, you know, the mind is the important piece onto the level of suffering we experience. You know, like we all can be amazed at how some people seem to take certain things in stride, you know, and it's like shocking, you know, but it's really, you know, a part of their habit of mind. They're able to tolerate, you know, the ups and downs, the horrors of life, you know, without it constantly impacting their peace of mind. And so Buddhism is about trying to develop that peace of mind, make that a habit, so that whatever happens out in the world, you know, external to us or even in our bodies, doesn't throw us into suffering. That we find this place of contentment no matter what's happening. But not like La La Land. Not like we're just pretending it's all good. Just that we know change is inevitable. So whatever's arising will also end. Okay? Slowly, slowly. All right. So Dogo Khyentse Rinpoche was a really well-known, well-respected teacher in all the traditions. Did Katrina ever join us? Is she there? Because she's asking for the link.
Yes,
for the
I'm here.
live.
I just I can't get my video to start, so sorry.
That's okay. I can't see everybody, so I don't know who's there.
Yes,
and who's
I joined because I know I'm gonna die, just like Jack.
Good. I'm
Well-
glad you know that.
Maybe sooner than later. Who, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Well, that's right. We don't know. That's exactly right. Okay. And so the idea here, the best way to prepare for one's death is to practice Dharma for one's whole life. You know, so what is that about? What is that screaming to me? Try to read my mind and know what that's screaming to me.
We need to practice now.
Well, we need to practice now because we need a habit. We want to practice for one's whole life. You know, once we discover it, in order to have a new habit that doesn't chase after suffering and chase after, you know, sensory delights all the time. So, you know, so this Rinpoche, you know, this is just a, you know, a little bit of not just for your information so that you'll, you know, when you see these names in teachings or there's a, you know, you'll know that this is someone that is respected by all 4 Tibetan schools. He was a teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He was a master meditator. I'm sure his students all feel that he became enlightened or was already enlightened. But well, we have to get familiar because especially right now, we've got access, you know, to all sorts of classes, and we want to make sure that we're not just, you know, that we're, you know, listening to reliable sources. So it helps to kind of get familiar with names, even though they're very different than ones we're used to. So Kurti Sincha Rinpoche did a lot for the FPMT, which is the parent organization of our center. What I am saying, in other words, is that dying is a situation where a person needs to have prepared beforehand because you can't get it together while you're in the middle of it. You know, this is something really important to remember. If we don't practice, like sitting quietly and thinking, reflecting on these things, we won't be stable enough in the mind that when we're out in the thick of it and we run across complications and obstacles, the conditions that cause our impatience to arise or fear to arise, you know, we're not going to be able to get it then. You know, we need some practice, you know, so that we can gradually develop these habits to make them firm. And so the way to do that is when it's not happening. It's thinking about these things before the fact so that we can prepare ourselves. And then one of the glance, you know, the short text that Lama Tsongkhapa wrote, The Foundation of All Good Qualities, which is a nice glance meditation on the whole path, according to this tradition. This is one verse from it. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma ensue. So our next class will be on karma, but basically, you know, according to Buddhism, what we experience, our pleasant experiences, our unpleasant experiences, our delights, our suffering, are the results of past actions. So at the time of death, our mind goes to the next body, and the potentials on our mind stream that are going to be what arises to result in good experiences or negative experiences go with us. They're not left behind. So how we act and think and speak in this life is important to our happiness in the future. So at the time of death, we really don't want to be all angry at our bodies or angry at whatever, the doctor or, you know, our families. We don't want to be clinging to our families, feeling torturous, because that kind of suffering mind or fearful mind or grasping mind is a condition for not a great karmic seed to ripen. So we really want to prepare our minds so we can be more relaxed about it. So I've shared with you, you know, the story of our chaplain at the North Carolina Center, the first Buddhist chaplain in the country, I think. She took the program at Duke. well, when she died about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer than that now. And she was 62. And her daughter had just found out she was pregnant with her first grandchild. You know. So she had a lot of reasons, you know, that she, you know, didn't want to die yet, you know. But she was going to die. She knew she was going to die, and she did die. But she had prepared her mind such that, you know, yes, she felt the loss of her partner and her daughter and her future grandchild that she had not met. But she also, she told me, she goes, I feel like my bags are packed for my next adventure. She was also looking forward to what was next. And that's something worth preparing for. So that it isn't that we can just remove the loss of our, you know, loved ones of this life, but we can see it as just an ending, not the end. Mind is like a river passing through different countries. A river takes different names according to the different countries. In this way, the mind passes on, carrying the accumulated karma with it. When a being dies, the body decays and the mind passes on to continue in another bodily form, according to the type of body that it will inhabit in that life, in the next life. So like I often think of myself as the current caretaker of this mind stream, and my body is just the current, you know, B&B or, you know, hotel, motel. So it's just temporary. And the name Tendron's temporary. You know, it's just, you know, in this storyline. Because I don't remember my past lives, so this is the only one I know, but this will end. And everybody is like this. And when you really look at your life, you know, when you think about yourself as an infant, as a toddler, as a young child, as a middle schooler, as a teenager, someone in your 20s, 30s. We change all through that time, and we'll continue to change. And, you know, not only in the, you know, the mind, but our bodies change, you know, so it's just constantly changing. So we literally aren't physically the same person as we were, what, 2 seconds ago? Probably not even that long. The physics teaches us that. You know? And in fact, our body, is 80% something else? You know, all those microorganisms and stuff. So this thing we hold as my body is mostly made up of, you know, other living beings. And we just inhabit it for a short while. All of us. all 500 trillion microorganisms. So according to the Buddha, bodies have a beginning, but mind does not. And the minds are stuck in this continual birth, death, rebirth due to our delusions, which is grasping at a self that exists in some inherent way that is permanent, fixed. You know, I am Tendron. I am the embodiment of impatience. You know? And this mistaken idea about how we exist causes us to grasp at others as if they're permanent. You know? And we chase after everything to just sort of placate this body and our idea of our self-identity. We're kind of, you know, we're just constantly chasing after activities, excuse me, that make this body and mind feel a little better, or avoid and escape from what we don't like. So mind is eternal, but it's impermanent. It arises moment by moment. So when we talk about a continuum of mind, we're talking about it in the sense of like a river. You know, when you look at a river, you never look at the same river twice because the water just keeps flowing. It keeps changing. But we just have a convenient label for that body of water where the water keeps moving. We call it a river. But it's not an inherent river. In fact, it won't forever be a river. This is sort of a review from, you know, mind and its potential and meditation, just for some of you who haven't had these teachings. So according to Buddhism, the mind is clear. So it's unobstructed. It doesn't, because it's non-physical. It doesn't have shape or color. It is like, you know, the universe is in this vast space, you know, that is really just, you know, it has things going through it, but there's also space there. You know, we call it space because nothing could fit in it if there wasn't any space. So it has this absence of obstructive contact. And our mind can't be obstructed except by our delusions. By grasping at the self, grasping at this is me, our mind gets trapped in a very small container. But even it can't actually contain our minds. We all know how spacious our mind actually is when we look, and how we can, you know, it's like, you know, if people have gone to some shared event, you know, and they have a really good moment and the whole crowd just kind of feels wonderful in that moment. It's like you're all of a sudden friends, you know. It reminds me of the Coca-Cola commercial on the hilltop, you know, where just everybody feels harmonious and, you know, and that's because, you know, the mind, the heart, same word, you know, in Tibetan and all the Asian languages, you know, isn't restrictive. It can be as expansive as we make it. And it can be as tight. The function of mind is awareness. And we have the sense awarenesses and we have the mental awareness. And it reflects what we put into it. So if we put anger in it, that habit of anger arises easily because we have a habit of it. But underneath the anger, there's still this spacious, still mind that we can access when we train ourselves in how to do that. And that's how meditation can help us. It's just understanding the stillness that's underneath the turmoil of our thoughts and conceptions. That there really is space between the thoughts, and that your mind's capable of becoming aware of that. It is our distraction. It's our, scattering of our mind, always chasing after something to escape whatever moment we're in, that prevents us from finding that stillness. And so we need to practice it. So as I said earlier, the mind is not the brain. It is not, the brain is not the cause of the mind. It is a physical support for the mind. So our mind is really has an excellent physical support, which is the human brain. The mind of a mosquito has a really lousy physical support. So not going to be able to do much transformation with its mind, as long as it's in that body. So the cause of a moment of mind is just the previous moment of mind. Something physical cannot produce something non-physical. And there are 3 levels of mind. We have the gross level, the subtle level, and the very subtle. They use really fancy names in this tradition. So all of our sense consciousnesses, our eye awareness, our nose awareness, all of those are an example of a gross consciousness. They are totally dependent on the physical sense organs. So if you are born with a faulty sense organ, you will not have a working sense awareness for that. If you're born blind, you will not have the sense awareness of form. You won't be able to know those things directly because you won't be able to see color and shape. Our thinking consciousness is more subtle than our gross consciousness. But it's not what goes from life to life. So it's more gross than the mind that goes from this body to the next one. That's the very subtle mind. And at this moment, we really aren't aware of it at all. Very experienced yogis, who have mastered their concentration, might be able to access it. And we try to access it in our practices over, time, because it is one of the ways to free us from this uncontrolled cycle of birth and death. So, this life, we have this really valuable body, a human rebirth, so you have this physical support for your mind that is very sophisticated. So we're able to really develop our inner awareness and be able to, change our habits of mind. But not everybody has a precious human rebirth. Many people's conditions are such that they still can't spend a lot of time working on their mind. They're just trying to survive, just get enough food, shelter. So those of us who actually have free time and have this wonderful physical support for our mind, that's what Buddhism calls a precious human rebirth. Now, it's not dependent entirely on external circumstances, because we all know of people who actually put themselves in very difficult circumstances, but they have a very full inner life. They really work with their mind. They don't take their circumstances, their external circumstances, as the determinant of whether or not they can work on a spiritual path or develop their kindness or compassion or make themselves more miserable, But most of us need good conditions, external and internal, in order to practice well enough to be able to do that in very difficult conditions. don't think it's supposed to be. Okay. Is this where I want to go? Oh, no. This is the wrong file. I made changes to this file. I had the wrong one. You're not, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the file. Okay, I'm just, I had the slide in a different place, but who knows what happened to that file I saved. So, as is the tradition in this school of thought, where is it? Well, I completely don't have the file I want. Okay, but one of the ways to start working with, like even wanting to think about death, is we look at the disadvantages of not looking at it, not thinking about it, and what are the advantages of thinking about it. So, of course, in this context, they're all around the teachings. So Dharma are just simply the teachings of the Buddha. And basically the meaning of that is that Dharma means that it's whatever leads to the end of suffering. So of course it doesn't really have to just be Buddhism. It's just, it's just what leads us out of suffering. So a mind that is able to be calm no matter what's going on around them or what they're involved in is a mind that suffers less. So what we can do, and this isn't about just, like I said, it's not just about ignoring what's happening. It's really just understanding that it's impermanent. Whatever is happening is impermanent. It will end. Yes, I might die during this pandemic. Yes, we might get sick and die from it, but we're going to die sometime and we don't know when, and this just may be the time. So we don't have to get all fearful about it. We just take care of our bodies, do the best we can, and accept the fact that, we don't have control over that. If we don't think about our deaths, then what we tend to fill our time with is just chasing after the temporary happiness of today. What can we do today? What can we eat today? What can we watch on TV? What book can we read? What can we do with for our kids or whatever? We just get caught up into the daily routine that is just concerned with this body, this day, is not really thinking about the future, not thinking about at the end of their life, when they look back on their life, will they think they've had a meaningful life or a wasted life? And if we don't recall that we are impermanent, we procrastinate, And even though we might even do some practice, we might not do it mindfully. We may just, it's like, this is the sort of that caution where, say you say some prayers every day, but you 5 years ago was the last time you actually listened to the words you were saying. You know, you've just got them memorized, you just say them every day, you know, but you're not really thinking about it. You're not letting it transform your mind. And whenever we're bored or sleepy, we just follow our attachment. Well, think about something else while we're doing things. Like meditating. You don't really meditate. What you do is sit still while you're daydreaming. Which almost everybody who's ever meditated will do on occasion. So, and at the time of death, greatly attached to this life, making no effort to change our habits, we continue to create negative karma. So what is this about? This is about that we're creating the cause for our future suffering. And then at the time of death, we recognize it's too late to practice and we die in a state of regret. And it's not the kind of good regret where where you're just wanting to purify your mistakes. It's the kind of regret that grasps at this life and says, oh no, I'm out of time, you know? So it just goes straight to attachment for the self, you know, and it's, you know, poor me self. Oh no. So that's not a particularly useful way to prepare. You know, I mean, this is one of the reasons why, you know, we know this, you know, like when we do our annual, you know, New Year's resolutions, and we go, oh gosh, a whole other year has gone by. You know, well, we don't want to be our experience at the time of death to be like that. If we're fortunate enough to live to old age and we're finally reaching the end of our life, and when we're, you know, going to sleep at night and we don't know if we're going to wake up in the morning because death is really close and we know it, we don't want to be lying in bed thinking about all the things we didn't do. You know, we want to feel a certain sense of peace about, you know, not everything, obviously. We're not Buddhas. We will have a list of mistakes, but we don't want to dwell on those mistakes. What we want to feel is like, okay, good enough. You know, we don't have to want to let go. It's just more of not grasping. You know, it's sort of like the difference between attachment and enjoyment is it's fine to enjoy the cheesecake. It's when we actually don't even experience eating the cheesecake because we're thinking about how can we get cheesecake tomorrow. So we actually miss the whole experience except for that very first bite where we go, ooh, this is lovely. And then we spend the rest of eating, you know, we shovel those calories in and miss the whole pleasurable experience. That's due to attachment. That's due to grasping to make something permanent, you know, and never being separated from it. So all the panic buying, you know, bet there were lots of things in those grocery carts that were not necessities. But, you know, I have 4 boxes of Triscuit in my cabinet, you know. There's only one version I eat because it's low sodium. And I have no other snacks, you know, I don't keep them in the house, but I have to have one. Well, do I have one? No, I have 4 boxes because I don't go out to the grocery right now. You know, that's grasping. And, you know, it's like, I don't want to be without this snack occasion. I just got them. I hadn't had anything before that. And then I thought, ooh, but, you know, it'd really be nice. And so did I order 1 box? No, I ordered 4. So this is the kind of thing, this is the habit of grasping at things to, you know, be a certain way. We also want things to, you know, we think we're looking for the day when we've got it. We've got the right job, we've got the right partner, we've got the right food in the house, we've got the right house, we've got the right car, we've got the right, all these things, the right clothes. And that's never going to happen. This is why the value of that brand new car drops by thousands of dollars as soon as you go off the parking lot. Nothing lasts. But we grasp after it, hoping it will. And we do that with this body. So one way to help us prepare for death is to recognize that grasping is not going to make you stay. Grasping just tortures us. The mind of grasping, the mind of craving, is a suffering state of mind. And we can give it up. And so that's one of the things we want. That's when we're thinking about death, we really want to look at the facts. We're going to die. Do we want to be suffering mentally at the time of death? Or do we want to meet it with acceptance and a certain sense of peace about our lives, no matter how long they are, short they are? So we feel like, you know, our last conversations with loved ones were good enough, you know, because we have mindful speech. Not perfect speech. You know, it's like the argument, not the argument. It's so revealing of habit energy. So it's like, you know, the couples who decide they'll never go to bed angry. You know, so they'll kind of at least work some on whatever's come up that day, you know, because that's that, you know, fear of that your last words being something really ugly. Well, the way you prevent that is to work on not saying ugly words. Now, will you be perfect? No. But if we don't even try, we'll have that regret. I'm getting distracted by the chats. Am I supposed to read these? Please don't. I mean, it's really distracting because I get this orange screen going, chat, chat, chat. Everybody does, I guess, when it's to everyone. So do it privately to like Nicole or Rebecca, you know. So, and yes, of course, if you can't stay till 9, don't stay till 9, you know. You're an adult, you can choose. So,
I'm not getting any chats, Venerable Tendron. I don't, so.
it's just on a chat.
Yes, I can't see well clearly.
You know, it just flashes until I click on it, and then it will stop flashing. The chats, the text to host, from host to everyone, from host to everyone. Who's in the waiting room? Anybody in the waiting room?
No, it's they're not really there. Robert's yeah, I don't think it's
Cyberspace, here we go. Anyway.
I had a question, Venerable.
Yes, Faye.
So like you're talking about attachment. What about the concept of like saving money, for example, right? I mean, we're saving money for the future, being practical, but is that also practicing attachment too?
Does it sound like attachment?
Tiny bit. I don't know.
Well, you may be attached to the money, but is that the intention?
No, it's just more for practical, like.
Because we have to, don't we?
Yeah.
We don't want to confuse. You know, it's not like, it's so important to understand we have to take care of ourselves. You know, letting go of attachment and craving is not caring. It's not really, although they'll use this, although you often see the word detachment in text. It's not detachment as in the sense of I'm just indifferent to everything because it doesn't matter. No, everything that all our positive past actions ripen as pleasure. Might as well enjoy it. You know, we need to understand that pleasure is not from the cheesecake. There's no pleasure ingredient in the cheesecake. Our experience of pleasure is due to our past positive actions. It's not the cheesecake. Our experience of happiness and unhappiness, of suffering, of contentment is an inner matter. It's a mental state. Certainly, the conditions out there, you know, can be a stimulus for something to ripen, but it is not the cause of it. So, whether or not we experience pleasant, you know, like the pleasant breeze, you know, on a hot day, and we experience it as pleasant, that experience of pleasant is the result of a past positive action. Because it's not in the breeze. Yes, Dave.
I had a question. What about like a love interest that you like can't see yourself with them or can't see yourself without them? Like, how do you do non-attachment with that?
Well, that's the thing. It's like we can love someone, you know, like say you have a child and then they grow up and they're moving out of the house, you know, and as a, you know, you may kind of think, oh, you know, empty nest, yuck, you know, but of course you want to let go of them because you can be happy without them in the house because you spent whatever, your childhood, all those years without them. They didn't exist. You were happy then. You know, it's this idea that the happiness isn't in that person. They don't own all your happiness. You know, so it doesn't mean that you don't value the relationship, enjoy the relationship, develop the relationship, work on the relationship, all of those things. But this idea we have that we can't live without them is false. We will live without them. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not easy, but this idea that somehow will never be happy again is not true. I mean, that's just based on this false notion that you can't be happy without them. And we can
Yeah, I mean, like right now,
I'm sorry?
I would say right now I'm without them. Right now I'm without them. If I were with them, I would be happy. If I'm not with them, I would be happy. It's just like trying to get over that hurdle of like, you know, I'm like waiting for like an answer, basically, you know.
Well, I mean, it's this idea that it's not that we want to stop enjoying their company. It's just knowing that when they die, we'll have to go on, and we will go on. Now, whether we're going to go on and be miserable for the rest of our lives is a choice. And how our habit of mind, whether we feed our grief or let it go when it passes, and that's just moment by moment, you know, eventually we will find, you know, joy again. Because joy is an inner thing. It's not, you know, no one owns all our joy. Hernan? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I was just thinking about that, and in that case, relying our happiness on something outside of ourselves or somebody else it's almost like giving up our freedom, because now you not only turn yourself onto dependent of that object or that person, but you're so dependent on that if you don't have it, you're not happy. So you pretty much like you give up your freedom.
Well, you've
that
set yourself
is born
up.
with you.
I mean, this is the thing, you know, it's like, and it's a total misconception of how we exist. We really think that we, you know, if you are fortunate enough to, you know, have a harmonious relationship with a partner, you know, who you care about, who you're attracted to, all, you know, who you can rely on, you know, it isn't that them not being in your life wouldn't be a loss. It's just that our happiness is not actually in them. It's our response to them. You know, so that the person that we find difficult, we can't believe they ever got married because we can't imagine anybody wanting to marry them, you know, that's because, you know, but that's because our response to them isn't positive. It has nothing to do with them and their ability or inability to, you know, make someone happy, so-called. You know, it's just, you know, it's our response to people. So someone who wants a perfect partner is unlikely to ever find that perfect partner because they don't exist. So you're setting yourself up for no happiness if you think you have to have the perfect partner to be happy. So all of these, you know, it's this recognition that yes, we have preferences, and that's, you know, karma ripening, habits ripening, you know, so we're attracted to this person and not to this person. You know, this person's personality, it seems to mesh well with our personality, you know, whatever. You know, and so, you know, so we're willing to work together and da 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 da. But it's all, you know, the other person's a condition. It's like, okay, you could say your aloneness is dependent on whether there's someone else in the room with you, you know, but it doesn't mean that if someone else is in the room with you, that your mood is a response to that person. Your mood is your response, is from you. It's an inner thing. So just because someone walks into the room and you wish they hadn't walked into the room, that's where the unhappiness starts. It's not the other person, it's our response. So it's not that grief doesn't, you know, of course we grieve. You know, like I remember one of the Tibetan teachers, Geshe Gela in North Carolina. His teacher died shortly after he moved to the States. Or maybe it was shortly before he moved to the States. It was very close to the beginning of meeting him. But he, you know, he said, well, you know, when your teacher dies, all you can do is cry. You know, so it's not that the teachings suggest that we're not going to have loss, but that loss is coming from inside us. It's a mental state because we're going, you know, we are going to be without this or that or da 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 da. But does that mean we're never going to be happy again? Or that we can't live without them? Unfortunately, you know, it's like I told you, when my mom died, I felt like someone was reaching into my chest, pulling my heart out. I couldn't believe how physical the pain felt. I was 27 and I just couldn't, you know, I had no idea that this is what it would feel like. And then one day I woke up and I thought, it's not going to kill me. I have to just go on. You know, I'd go back to college, finish college. I was in my last year of college. told you how long it took. So, you know, I mean, it's just, it's, you know, whether we are experiencing suffering is a mental process. It's not whether someone's there or not there. It has to do with our response to them. We have a loss because we found them valuable in our lives. You know, think about someone who was a close friend, or someone you dated in high school or whatever, you know, someone, you know, and who you've lost track of. And then, you know, say you find out that they passed away, you know, you might feel something, but you won't feel what you would have felt at the time, right? People come in and out. I mean, this is it. It's impermanent. It doesn't mean that your relationship when it was actually existing was valueless. It's just a condition that's impermanent. So we need to work on, you know, our habits of mind so we're not thrown so severely by change. Because change is happening every moment. And our resistance to that reality causes additional suffering. Because that wish that it wasn't so is suffering. Yes, Veronica.
Hi. Now that I hear you talking, it's kind of like a slap in my face a little bit, because the way that I've been thinking incorrectly is to judge myself in the amount of intensity that I feel the absence of the person. So if I feel indifferent, that would mean that I didn't care. If I suffer, that would mean that I do care. But I guess it's basically I've been seeing this completely wrong, because it has nothing to do with it's my choice, has nothing to do with how I react to the other person. So and I think that sometimes for me, that is how I understand how I care, by how much I feel.
Okay. Well, and that's your habit, you know, so it really is about understanding that we don't have to be a mess to, you know, to show our care of someone else. You know, it's more of understanding that we enjoy someone when we're with them. But we can, you know, we can still have joy when we're not with them. You know, I mean, it's sort of like letting go of your children when they grow up. You know, or even letting go of the little children that you liked when they turn into teenagers. So,
yeah.
But, you know, it's this holding on, let it be different. You know, it's like we say we love someone, we want nothing but happiness for them. But if they decide our relationship is not making them happy and they leave, we're not very generous about it. You know, we can often just kind of cling, you know, and try to make them miserable in their new life. You know?
Exactly, because at the end of the day, the sun is there every day. The flowers are there, you know, all these things are there. It's just my perception, it is so incorrect that I put myself in this hurricane of emotions, and I'm drawn, and sometimes I drown myself by myself, because the world is going on fine.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
or without me.
Yes. Such a shock, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. It's learning how, it's the same thing. It's like if there's a lot going on in your life. And so you look at your mind and your mind's chasing after a whole bunch of different things, and we think that's all there is. But if we sit quietly for a while, we can discover there's still a peaceful mind there too. It's like understanding that, the ocean deep it moves differently than the surface, like I used to give the example of, sometimes when you meditate, it's nice to think, as you're trying to let all the distractions just kind of fall to the background. I think about how, I don't know if you did this, but as a child, I would sit on the bottom of a pool. And so the water just muffled everything that was going up there. And that's what we can access. Because that's available to us, even with all the stuff going on in our lives. It's just a matter of learning how, of being willing to sit and discover that aspect of the mind, instead of chasing the thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's do a reflection. So we'll practice the basic. So I've sent you the readings and I made a suggestion about what to read. And then there's a short meditation that is the 9 point, what do they call it?
9-point death meditation.
Yeah, something like that.
So,
Anyway, there's 9 points in it. Yes.
Also, I nipped out of our thing to send everyone the readings. There are a couple of emails I don't have. I'm just going to say Robert and Veronica and Brian. I don't have your email. So
if you will just email me and tell me who I need to email it to, I can do that. I have their emails.
Oh, you do. And Dave, yours bounced back. So if you want to privately put in the chat to Rebecca privately, you can put your email to me in the chat and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a short meditation, there's a short 9-point meditation, and then there's also a 9-point meditation in 3 parts, because there are 3 main sections of this meditation. And so that's just to, give you the opportunity to reflect on each portion more in depth. Okay. But as I've said before, well, of course, not all of y'all have been here before, but it's when you look at the meditations, the place to start is just reading them. You don't try to sit still, settle your breath like we talked about and how to meditate, and then tackle this whole meditation that you've never seen before. First, you need to get familiar. Part of meditation and mindfulness, particularly mindfulness, we can only be mindful of an object that we're familiar with. If we're not familiar with it, we don't stand a chance to be mindful of it. So we kind of have to get familiar. So you just read the meditation, and then maybe if something resonates for you or strikes you, you might want to just meditate on that the next day or later for 5 minutes. So it's not, so just see these as just a process. You take, just take parts, because there's no expectation of you. In fact, we wouldn't encourage you to try to sit with these topics for an hour. If you're a beginner, that you don't want to do that. You want to get up from a meditation when you're still happy to meditate. You don't want to develop aversion for meditating. Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, so let's try to assume the position. I can't help it. That just amuses me. So let's try to sit like we're ready for a new meditation. So that just means sitting so that our back is straight and our eyes are, gazing downward or gently closed, not looking at anything. It can be sometimes helpful to keep them gently open so that the light can keep you awake, because the whole point of meditation is to become more aware. A nice side effect of meditation is it tends to help you learn to relax, but it's not the point. Okay. So get back in touch with your body, sitting there in this moment. Just notice. Notice the pressure against your legs from the chair or the cushion. The temperature of the room against the skin. Any noises in the background. All the sense awarenesses operating. And just accept whatever arises. You can take a few deep breaths to try to, allow your body to relax into this posture. And then just be aware of your mind. What's going on in the mind? Do you feel calm or tired or whatever it is? Just notice whatever's arising in this moment. And just think you're going to try out this meditation on death because you're curious. Doesn't matter the reason, whatever the reason, but with the hope that it benefits yourself in some way and then ripples out to benefit others. So we all know that death is definite. No one escapes death. No amount of money stops death. And according to the Buddha, we cannot increase the amount of time we have left. So if we think of how much time has already gone by, and how much of that time we spent sleeping, how much time we spent eating and preparing meals, how much time we spent working or in school, all the laundry we've done, all the socializing we've done, all the time of raising children, we can see that the time to practice Dharma is very small. The time to help our minds is very small. So the time to practice is now. So the time of death is uncertain. We know that death is definite. But when we die, we don't know when that will be. The length of our lives is unknown. People die at all different stages of life. Many things can cause death, but only few things cause life. When we really think about how we can die from the food we eat, from the air we breathe, from the transportation we use to get to work or just live our lives, our bodies have a lot to do to keep us alive. But one day, one moment, it will fail. The body is extremely fragile. So we need to practice now. So death is definite. The time of death is uncertain. And at the time of death, only our spiritual practice can help us. Our possessions can't help us. Doesn't matter how much we own, how big our house is, where we live. We can't buy our way out of death. Our loved ones can't help us. And at the time of death, sometimes our loved ones can increase our fear and our grief, the loss of our relationships. And our bodies definitely can't help us. The only thing that can help us is the quality of our state of mind. So we need to practice. We need to practice now. And we need to practice well to really work on our mind, develop those habits of compassion and generosity and patience and kindness, gentleness, so that at the time of death, those are the states of mind that arise. We want to have the habit of rejoicing in all the things that we've done well or kindly, and all the things that others do. We want to focus on the good qualities. All the moments of compassion and kindness and generosity. All our moments helping others. So we want to really develop a strong, stable mind that has confidence in our good qualities, that wants to benefit others, and certainly doesn't want to harm others, that loves well, but lets go when things come to an end. So we're thinking about death to help us, to inspire us to work on our minds while we have the time. Because this won't just benefit ourselves at the time of death, but it will definitely ripple out to benefit our loved ones. Having a peaceful death will benefit us and all those who love us, who care for us. Now take a moment to check in with your body. Check in with your mental awareness. Rejoice in your efforts to contemplate death in this way. And whatever benefits that may ripen in the future. May they ripple out to benefit others until there are no suffering sentient beings at all. So relax your attention and return to the group. So this meditation is just a way, it's like an outline of things you can think about. You know, it's really helpful to just sit quietly and reflect on what we know about, you know, the impermanence of our body, and that what we know how, you know, that, you know, our belongings are not going to prevent anything, you know, from happening to us. So at the time of death, you know, our attachment to our stuff isn't going to serve any purpose. No. That even our family and friends can actually, you know, make that time even harder. So we really have to work from inside. We have to work on our mind to find our peace. Because it may not happen around us. The body's failing. Those who love us will be grieving. We'll have to let go. My stepmom's, I don't know, 95 or something. So she's sort of like, I don't really have any friends left. But it doesn't mean she's not going to lose her sister who's still here, you know, but it is, you know, so it's all relative. But that's another reason to think about death, because it's not just, I mean, if you live a long, long life, many people that you care about will die before you. And so being able to respond to that fact of how we exist can help us, you know, understand that we can still have a good life, happy life, in spite of the fact that we're impermanent. That doesn't have anything to do with it. That everything is a, you know, coming and a parting. We just come and go. And we have been doing it our whole lives. There's so many people that once were in our lives that are no longer in our lives. And there are a bunch of new people that we haven't met yet. So clinging to people when we must depart is not wisdom. It's a condition for suffering. It's a cause of suffering. Okay. Any last minute things before we say some prayers at the end? We all good? Sorta. Always lovely to, you know. But, you know, when you're going to sleep at night is a good time to think about this, you know. And then, you know, you go to sleep with this idea of, you know, oh boy, tomorrow, another day to practice. So, you know, and we'll talk about that, because in this tradition, we use the going to sleep process as a way to practice what happens at the time of death. So, so more to come. Anyway. Okay, so I'm going to use the dedications that Rinpoche has asked us to say during these times. So we just want to feel good about our efforts this evening. You know, any kind of thing that we do that is helping us look at things from a different angle, from a different perspective, is a way that we keep our minds open. It's a positive action to do. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, believe in it, whatever. It's just that the more we can keep our minds flexible, you know, this helps us. This benefits our mind, and it benefits the way we respond to others and treat others. So it's a wonderful thing. So thank you for your participation. So now we'll recite the dedication. This is just the idea that we take whatever positive actions we've done. According to Buddhism, that places a positive imprint on our mind stream that will ripen in a positive way in the future. And so we're just being generous and hoping that it will ripen to benefit others. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, all the three-time merits collected by numberless sentient beings and numberless Buddhas, however many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses without exception of transmigratory beings never occur again. To all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, all the three times merits collected by numberless sentient beings and numberless Buddhas, may those who are sick, may they never ever be reborn in the lower realms, and may they immediately recover from their sickness, be able to generate bodhicitta in this very lifetime, all their wishes to succeed in accordance with Holy Dharma. For all those who got the virus and died, may they never ever be reborn in the lower realms, and those in the lower realms now immediately be liberated and be reborn in a pure land where they can achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. So Rinpoche had in mind all the, you know, globally with this pandemic. So, but of course, it's for all of us as well, and all other suffering sentient beings, because it's not the only thing that's causing suffering at the moment. So, but thank you.